Hi, today we will talk a bit about me, as I've come face to face with a health condition that may define my life. My entire life I've been an athlete. We didn't have phones as kids to turn us into depressed and confused children, but even for the standards of my time, I was a very active kid. I was passionately playing all the sports that were available to me at any place and any time for as long as was possible. As I grew to be a teenager, my love for sports didn't fade, despite the fact that my interests expanded into music and literature. When I left home to study in the university, I fell face first into the exciting world of martial arts. Since then, I always practiced at least one of them, and in total, I've been doing several, the latest of which is HEMA, or historical swordsmanship. I've had problems with my back from early on, but it was never anything worrying. Some back pain or a pinched nerve here and there were nothing to worry about, especially since I was quite vigorous, athletic, and moved like a panther. I excelled in all martial arts or sports I practice, and that was enough for me at the time. However, I was also reckless at times. I would not hesitate to do things that were dangerous or extreme. Not that someone shouldn't do that, it's just that knowing what I know now, if I could go back in time, I would have been more careful in the way I had done all that. I started having more serious back problems around 5 years ago, with them reaching their peak in the last year. I got to the point of not being able to get up from bed without excruciating pain. If I would sneeze, it would feel like someone stabs a knife into my spine, and the daily chores of having a family or carrying any kind of weight, of which a man usually has plenty to do in his daily life, became a constant struggle against pain. Something was very wrong. After a visit to the orthopedic doctor's clinic and 10 physiotherapy sessions, nothing had changed. An MRI showed that two of my lumbar discs, those discs between my vertebrae in the lower back, had dried out. The fluid which fills them up almost gone, and for that reason, that point of my spine was now compressed, resulting in bone pressing the spinal nerves, explaining the pain, and the spine not functioning properly because of it, resulting in loss of mobility and athleticism, as well as a degree of bone degeneration in the affected area. I imagine due to abnormal contact with other bones. Going back, I was trying to imagine what could have caused that. Sure, there were many times when I overdid it with the duration or the intensity of exercise, but one, the spinal discs are designed in such a way that they can take very heavy loads without problems, and two, I've seen people with absolutely zero physical activity end up having disc surgery. So that mustn't have been it. At least not all of it. I remember a few times when I had to carry an extremely heavy load for a great distance or through uneven pathways because it was my duty. But the totally certain cause of the problem was one and only one: body posture. Sitting with relaxed shoulders and a straight back is easy to ignore when you are young and fresh and everything feels fine. At the time, it feels like a habit that is easy to form, to sit in random ways. But the habit is formed and follows you to later ages, to times when a disease or a change in body fat percentage weakens your muscular ability around the lower spine, which is largely what protects it from herniating. That, combined with the unhealthy propaganda against meat, animal fats, eggs and dairy, and in favor of carbohydrates and other elements which are responsible for the mineral depletion and the inflammation in many parts of our bodies, will do the trick. So here is the problem with the discs. They have blood circulation when we are kids and still growing, so any damage to them will be healed. But once we grow to our adult size, we no longer have blood circulation. So the official position of medicine, at least until recently, was that once the discs dry out, they cannot be rehydrated or restored. So naturally, having come face to face with a health problem that had already reduced me to someone who cannot use his body to achieve his athletic and work-related dreams, and which was threatening to possibly take my mobility away altogether, I started doing research. And boy, did I enter a magical world of lies when I did so. I saw surgery to be said to be the final solution to this whole problem. Artificial disc replacement was touted to be something amazing and revolutionary, to do specifically if you are young like me and want to get the most use out of it. Great materials, you replace the dried out discs with metallic or plastic ones, and that's it, problem solved. But of course, after further research, I discovered that things weren't quite so rosy. Artificial disc replacement doesn't have too many decades behind it, being a relatively new technology, so we all don't have a lot of studies to show what's happening with it. But I did manage to find a very interesting one in PubMed, which informed me that within a decade after surgery, a little over 70% of patients who had undergone artificial disc replacement developed something called heterotopic ossification. And that is the formation of bone where it isn't supposed to be, namely around the implant. This didn't cause any immediate pain, so it wasn't easy to detect, but it did limit mobility, so it did require revision surgery to fix. But revision surgeries in that area are not only increasingly difficult, but also increasingly dangerous, since new blood vessels and tissues form around the operated area. In a talk I had with an orthopedic doctor, I asked him why do many doctors then present artificial disc replacement as the end-all of spinal disc problems. His answer was that if a new technology like that comes along and a doctor invests 200K in the equipment necessary to install an artificial disc, he then wants to promote this and get as many patients to do the operation in order to make back his investment and then profit, regardless of what that means for his patients or their well-being. I couldn't help but notice the eternal problem of medical corruption once again. The other surgical option was spinal fusion. In that form of surgery, they simply remove the damaged disc and they fuse the two vertebrae together, forming one big one. No disc, no problem, right? Except, of course, you no longer have any spinal mobility at that spot. And what's worse, your spine becomes a domino, since the neighboring discs now take increased forces compared to before. So they deteriorate much faster. The result is that more and more discs get damaged and more fusions are required as one gets older. Also, a relatively unimportant side effect of fusion is also that with each fusion you lose some height, as every disc you remove makes your spine shorter. In my eyes, both those types of operation were the beginning of the end, and thus I will avoid them, unless they are absolutely 100% unavoidable. Luckily, new information about the human body is surfacing, and new solutions are gaining popularity. And I will take you along on that journey, as I'm trying to slay an unslayable dragon and restore the unrestorable. If you're interested in it, feel free to subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.